TV shows might actually play a role in whether the jury finds Jodi guilty of murdering her boyfriend, Travis Alexander. Tonight in the Showbiz Countdown, we are revealing to you the top 3 ways TV crime shows may influence the jury in the Jodi Arias murder trial. And with us tonight from Hollywood, one of the driving forces behind one of TV's most watched crime shows, CBS's Criminal Minds, Jim Clemente is an advisor and a writer on the hit show. He's also a former FBI profiler and a prosecutor. Vinny Politan, who co-hosts HLN's After Dark weeknights at 10 p.m. Eastern, is staying up after dark with us, and we appreciate that, Vinny. We kick off our countdown at number 3 tonight. Could watching crime shows be influencing jurors to be more skeptical of Jodi's claim that she shot Travis and stabbed him 29 times in self-defense? Take a look at some of the tough questions they came up with when they were given the chance to submit questions directly to Jodi when she was on the witness stand.
Why is it that you have no memory of stabbing Travis?
I can't really explain why my mind did what it did. Maybe because it's too horrible. I don't know. I really don't know the answer as to why I blacked out or have memory gaps that much of that day.
All right, Jim, let's get to this. It's your expertise. We know TV shows influencing criminal cases has become known as the CSI effect after, of course, another hit CBS crime drama. And you got to agree, those questions were sharp, they were direct, and a lot of times they were out of the box. So I have to think that watching crime shows is teaching people like those on the Jodi Arias jury who have no law backgrounds to ask the kinds of questions they did.
I think you're absolutely right. I think what's happened is it's raised the bar for all witnesses to take the stand, whether it's the defendant or the prosecution witnesses. And basically, if you look at the profound effect that TV has had on just the general population, when LA Law was out, for example, female law school admissions went up 20%. And when X-Files came out, the FBI was flooded with applications. It definitely affects the general population. And unless those jurors never watch TV, they are going to be affected by it. They know more today. They know about sophistication, and they know about how criminals can lie, and they know how difficult the job of a cop is.
And the details, I mean, some of the things that the jury has been focusing on have just been mind-boggling. Listen to their question to Jodi about her emotional state.
Were you mad at Travis while you were stabbing him?
I don't remember being angry that day. I remember being terrified.
I'm going to sustain the objection. I think you've answered the question.
I mean, that's pretty specific, asking her if she was angry while she stabbed Travis. Vinny, it sounds like the jury is really trying very hard to get inside Jodi's head, much like on Jim's show Criminal Minds. Do you think the crime shows did help them shape those questions?
Oh, absolutely. And it changes everything, because we are drawn to these shows and we watch these shows because of the drama that's involved in trying to figure out what's going on. Then you do that week in and week out watching these shows. Now you have an opportunity to do it for real. It's almost as if you're watching Criminal Minds and CSI. It's like your training ground now to serve on a jury. And when you have a chance to ask the questions like they do in Arizona, absolutely jaw-dropping.
Yeah, all of a sudden, it becomes interactive. We see the jury asking Jodi these tough questions, kind of giving her a hard time about her story. Then you go outside the trial. You leave and talk to the jury watchers. These are the people who have been showing up to watch this as if it were a spectator sport or reality TV. You got to watch what one woman told HLN.
I think it's fascinating, better than reality TV.
Do you believe the defense's claims that Jodi Arias was a victim of abuse?
Not sure about that. I think it's probably the other way around. Whether she was abused or not, I'm not sure, but I mean, definitely I think she's guilty of murder.
Definitely. No wiggle room there. She's made up her mind. Not a whole lot of compassion for Jodi either. This leads us to number 2 in our Showbiz Countdown. Could perceptions formed by TV crime shows actually influence the jury to have less compassion for Jodi Arias, or perhaps on the other side of that, more disgust? Jim, what do you think?
Well, here's the thing. When you have a situation where there's somebody whose life is actually in your hands, when you're on a jury, you actually are making that decision whether that person lives or dies. It's a very weighty choice. And I think anything that the jury considers about her being a human being, having faults, having her own emotions and her own victimization. I think all those things are going to weigh against them voting a guilty verdict, at least on the death penalty charges. So I think that the shows that get into the minds or into the backgrounds and the histories of the victims, of the defendants.
Right.
I think those shows actually can humanize defendants like Jodi, and I think they can actually make it more difficult for a jury to actually convict on that count.
No, that's really interesting perspective, and it makes complete sense when you think about it. Let me get your take on that, Vinny. You're somebody who's been covering this trial in particular like nobody else on HLN After Dark, and I know you've heard from trial watchers yourself on your show. So to the point of this question, do you think that crime shows could actually influence jurors to have more compassion for Jodi or perhaps even more disgust for Jodi?
I think there might be more disgust because what you see in a lot of the crime shows is there's a twist and there's this, it's focused a lot always on the motive. And that's what this case is about, is a lot of it is about the motive, why she did it, because she admits to the killing. The question is, why did she kill him? And I think the way Hollywood and everyone else, the story is fascinating. The why of it becomes so important, and it translates directly to this case. And I think when they figure out why, they're going to be more disgusted.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like you agree, Vinny, that one way or the other, whether it is compassion or disgust, and you say disgust, the TV crime shows certainly could have an effect on how these jurors are feeling about her as a human being.
Absolutely. That's our baseline. We all come in with that commonality because these shows are watched by tens of millions of people week in and week out, and that's who the jurors are. They're just ordinary folks who are doing their civil duty. And, you know, the way I see it, the one other thing that it does do, though, it does raise the bar for the prosecutor. We're looking at him right there. And that's when it gets to the forensics and things like that.
Well, we've been watching emotions running so high when it comes to this trial. And of course, it reminds me, and I think everybody, of Casey Anthony and when she was acquitted of murder, the murder of her young daughter, of course. This leads to number one on our Showbiz Countdown of the ways TV crime shows could be influencing the Arias trial. Now, in the Jodi Arias case, are those shows more likely to have the jury convict her of murder or maybe even buy her claim of self-defense and acquit her? Jim, I think I know your take on this, but have at it.
Well, here's the thing. I think just like Vinny said, anything in the crime shows that raise the bar for the prosecutor make it more difficult to actually convict her, especially on a death penalty charge. I think this is the kind of thing that where you might see jury nullification or a jury compromise. In other words, they know she's guilty, but they may not, because they see her as a human being now, they may not actually convict her of a death penalty offense. So they may go for a lesser included offense.
And we heard that trial watcher a few minutes ago who just had her mind made up. She said she is guilty. That's how she would have voted. But if you don't think that Jodi could be acquitted, remember, a lot of people said the very same thing when Casey Anthony's verdict came in. No way would she be acquitted, right? Well, they sure got that wrong.
As to the charge of first-degree murder, verdict as to count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. As to the charge of aggravated child abuse, verdict as to count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. As to the charge of
Vinny, I'm just reminding everybody there, if the Jodi Arias jury has been influenced by crime shows in your mind, do you think it would make them more likely to convict her of murder?
No, I think it's more likely to acquit her or find her guilty of something less. And that's because the CSI effect when it comes to a smoking gun, the level of proof, the level of expectation of some of these jurors is that someone's going to put a blue light over something and have the case solved like that.
Right.
And in the real world, it doesn't always work out that way.
Well, we will sit here and eagerly continue to wait. Jim Clemente, Vinny Politan, very fascinating. Thank you both so much.